Hi, I'm Eric Berman, Communications Director here at the Massachusetts Association of Realtors, and welcome to Sidebar. I'm joined today by Ashley Stolba, our Associate Counsel. Hello, Ashley.
Hello, Eric.
Thank you for being here. So what are we talking about?
Multiple offers. I am getting so many questions on the legal hotline about multiple offer situations, so I think it's really helpful for us to discuss it here today.
Right. I know we have low inventory across the state, and we've had low inventory for a long, long time,
that's right.
so this would make sense.
Yeah.
So my first question. I am a listing agent on a property that has received multiple offers. My client has not accepted any yet, and a buyer agent has asked if there are any offers have been made on the property. So how do I respond to this question?
Okay, so number one, if you are taking a listing and you know there's potential that you're going to have multiple offers, be sure to talk about it with your seller in advance. This situation comes up all the time. So the Code of Ethics, what it says is that if you've received the permission from your seller, in response to any inquiries from cooperating brokers, you must answer truthfully. You must say, yes, of course, there have been offers on the property. But that's only if you've received the seller's permission. So again, talk to the sellers before taking the listing or when you're taking the listing. But yeah, just make sure you're getting in advance. Now, if you're using our listing contract, the MAR listing contract, there is a clause in there that says that you as a listing agent, you do have the ability to disclose the fact there are unaccepted offers. So it's included in our listing contract, but of course, talk about this with the seller, get their permission, and point out that section in the listing contract when you're taking the listing.
Okay, now I'm still a listing broker here. Now, an offer has been accepted. Must I disclose this?
Okay, now if the offer's been accepted, completely different story. You have no choice. If you're a listing broker and you have received an accepted offer, an offer has been accepted on that property, you have to disclose this affirmatively to any prospective buyers. You don't have to wait to be asked. You have to disclose the fact there have been accepted offers. I also know that MLS rules, they all require, as far as I know, that you update the status of your listing as soon as you get there's any change in the status of that listing. So if an offer's been accepted, you have to go ahead and change that listing in the MLS.
Okay. Now, how much can listing agents share about accepted offers to other prospective buyers?
Yeah, so this answer kind of shocks most people. Accepted offers and unaccepted offers are kind of treated the same when asked this question. There's no duty for the listing agent to keep any terms of that offer confidential as it pertains to the buyer side. Right. Remember, listing agents, in most situations, listing agents are going to have a relationship with the seller, right? They're going to represent the seller. So they don't really have those duties of confidentiality and things like that to the buyer. So if there are terms in those offers, unaccepted or accepted, and there hasn't been any type of confidentiality agreement signed, then they can really disclose pretty much anything. So if you're representing a buyer, one thing to keep in mind is you should be telling your buyer that, look, those terms of the offer may or may not be kept confidential. The buyer can attempt to sign some type of confidentiality agreement with the seller. But number one, if the confidentiality agreement is included in the offer and that offer hasn't been accepted, then neither has the confidentiality agreement, right? So I think in practice it can be quite difficult to incorporate these confidentiality provisions. Yeah, the listing agent can really share pretty much anything they want with the permission of the seller, because they don't have that duty of confidentiality to the buyer.
Okay, now I'm going to switch hats here. I'm going to be a buyer's agent
Okay.
here. Now, me and my client, we've made an offer to you, the listing agent, and guess what? We haven't heard a word.
Yeah.
What do we do
Yeah,
here?
so this can be very, very frustrating, especially when we're in these multiple offer scenarios where your seller has received all these offers, and the question comes, well, do they need to reject those offers in writing, or do I need to pick up the phone and reject that offer and let the buyer know that the seller is not going to accept that offer? The answer is no. There's no requirement in Massachusetts that a seller write down that they are rejecting the offer. Silence means it could mean it's rejected. You can certainly ask. You can certainly ask the listing agent. You can ask the seller to reject it in writing, but there's really no requirement that the seller do that.
Okay, now, me and my client, we made an awesome offer,
Yeah.
all cash, no contingencies,
Yeah.
full price. Now, shouldn't the seller be required to take that offer?
No. The seller is not required to take a full price, no contingency, perfect offer. You know, you have to be careful, but they're not required to accept that offer. There's much more to an offer than just price. I mean, there could be other things in offers that make an offer more attractive. So long as the seller isn't using any type of discrimination or fair housing issues or anything like that, No, but if you're representing a seller and you're getting yourself into a situation where your seller is accepting no offers, you got to be careful that, it could borderline be on misrepresentation, right? If you're advertising a home to sell and the seller isn't accepting any offers, the question could arise as to whether or not this is truly a representation that's accurate in your listing. But no, there's no requirement that a seller accept that offer.
Okay, good to know. What about verbal offers? What happens if you accept it verbally?
Yeah, this also comes up a ton because I know everyone's making phone calls and the seller's accepting over the phone. A verbal acceptance is not binding, and a verbal offer doesn't mean anything. So I know all the time buyers and sellers are handshake deals. They're not enforceable in Massachusetts. The statute of frauds applies to all offers in Massachusetts. So the offer must be formally made in writing, and it must be formally accepted by the seller in writing and also communicated back to the buyer. I have heard of sellers, they accept the offer, they sign it, and then they leave it on their desk and the buyer never knows. Is that binding? No, the buyer needs to know that the seller accepted it, but it has to be in writing.
Okay. So now, that was the last question, but I always want to end with any other advice you have for folks in these situations.
Just make sure you're talking to your sellers and your buyers in this kind of market. Let them know that the potential exists, there's going to be multiple offers, and work through it. It's very, very frustrating to be in this situation if you're on the seller's end or on the buyer's end. It can be very, very, very frustrating. So manage their expectations. I think that's very important, and just kind of coach them through this whole process. But let them know right in the beginning what it means if there's multiple offers involved. I've also heard of escalation clauses being put into offers. Anything like this, make sure that the buyers and sellers are working with attorneys if they're going to be using things like that. But just make sure everyone's prepared for this kind of situation because it can get competitive and get emotional. So just make sure that everyone is kind of coached through it.
Well, that's all we have today. Thank you very much, Ashley, and we'll
welcome.
see you on the next Sidebar.
Bye.